My mom's brave, but she's so lonely. Will you love her like we dream of? Human ** myths weren't supposed to be this big. He was too tall, too loud, too human. Ambassador Rinna stared across the glossy floor of the exchange hall, trying to keep her expression neutral. The last known human male had just walked in like he owned the oxygen, and stars help her. He looked like the stories, only worse. Or better, depending on how many nights she'd been alone. He moved like he didn't know how to be quiet. Shoulders too wide for his uniform, hands too big for his datapad. His voice carried through the room like thunder wrapped in silk. Several Zelyari delegates turned their heads. A few shifted uncomfortably. Others tilted their heads. Intrigued, Rinna told herself it was just shock, that's all. Humans had vanished from the galactic map decades ago after their war with the car. Rumors said they either retreated into deep space or simply faded. But one stood here now, breathing their air, smiling like he was in a bar and not a cross-species negotiation. Commander Jack Arden. That was his name. He wasn't supposed to exist, not with that jawline, not with that calm, unreadable expression, and definitely not with that much body heat. She could feel it from 3 meters away. Was that a natural human trait, or did he just run hotter than average? He extended his hand toward her like in the old Earth rituals. Rinna didn't move. She'd read the briefings. Physical contact was normal for humans, even expected, but Zelyari didn't touch unless they intended to bond, and she definitely did not intend to bond still. Her eyes flicked to his fingers, strong, veined, slightly calloused. Myth said humans were biologically unique, that their males were disproportionately large not just in muscle, but in other important areas. That when they mated, it wasn't clinical like Zelyari seed exchange. It was messy, loud, intimate. Rinna cleared her throat and forced her gaze back to his face. I don't shake hands, she said. Jack didn't flinch, he just dropped his hand with a half smile. Fair enough. I'm not here to offend anyone's customs. That voice, it rolled through her like warm water, deep, confident, with just the slightest rough edge, like he'd fought and bled and earned every scar he carried. She hated how much she liked it. You're not what we expected, she said flatly. He shrugged. No one ever is. Rinna frowned. We didn't know there were human males left. Jack gave a slow nod, the smile fading. There aren't many. We lost a lot. Some chose exile, others couldn't adapt after the wars. He looked at her directly now. But I adapted. Rinna wasn't sure if that was a warning or an invitation. Her skin felt too tight. Her glands were itchy. She crossed her arms, pretending to check her wrist console. Anything to hide the slight color change along her jawline. She was not blushing, she was overheating, that's all. So, Jack said casually, are the rumors true? Rinna blinked. What rumors? That Zelyari females think we're a myth or a threat, or both? She narrowed her eyes. Some do. He leaned in slightly, just enough to make her pulse jump. And you, Rinna's jaw tightened. I think you talk too much. Jack chuckled. You haven't even seen me try. Oh stars. That shouldn't have made her pulse spike, but it did. He stepped back finally, letting the space between them breathe again. But the damage was done. Her scent glands had flared, subtle but unmistakable. A Zelyari signal of interest. She cursed silently and turned toward the delegation table. Behind her, Jack's voice followed, quiet and curious. You ever wonder what else might be more than myth? She didn't answer. Not because she didn't have one, but because she did, and she wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not yet. Still, as she walked away, she became painfully aware of the fact that she wasn't thinking about the treaty anymore, or the delegation, or her job. She was thinking about his hands, and what else they might be good at. Rinna told herself she wouldn't look back. She lied. Just before slipping through the partition into the diplomatic chamber, she turned barely, just enough to catch a glimpse. Jack Arden was still standing there, hands in his pockets now, eyes scanning the ceiling like he was counting lights or pretending not to notice that she'd noticed him. He didn't smile this time. He just met her eyes, nodded once, and looked away, as if he was the one dismissing her. It annoyed her. Worse, it intrigued her. Most males, well, Zelyari drones avoided eye contact with a matron. They obeyed. Jack didn't obey. Jack offered. She didn't know what to do with that. The chamber was cold. She sat at the central table, surrounded by polished stone, artificial air, and the usual ceremonial silence. 3 other species were here, including the Drethi, who always smelled faintly of brine and fear. No one spoke first. Custom demanded patience. Jack was late. Custom also demanded punctuality. But just as Rinna was preparing a note of protest, the doors opened again with a hiss and in walked the human like he was stepping into a casual meeting. Not a council of interstellar law. He wore no armor. Just soft tactical fabric, sleeves rolled up to the elbow, and a utility belt slung loosely across his waist. His forearms were distracting, veined, strong, moving with easy confidence as he placed his translator on the table and sat beside her. Ambassador, he said smoothly. Commander, she replied. Stiff. You smell different today, he said. Her head snapped toward him. Excuse me. He didn't flinch. Your scent profile. Yesterday it was neutral. Now it's... He paused, eyes twinkling. Alert. I didn't authorize a scan, she snapped. You didn't need to. I have a nose. She stared at him, stunned. Zeliari males didn't comment on scent. Not unless it was part of the breeding process. Not unless they were chosen, and this human, this half-wild, muscle-wrapped relic from a forgotten world had the gall to say it like it was, whether she should have slapped him. Instead, her cheeks flushed purple. Jack turned toward the Drethi ambassador, spoke something formal, diplomatic, impressive even, but Rinna barely heard a word. Her body was reacting to something she didn't understand, a heat building low in her abdomen. Not dangerous, not urgent, just awake. It had been years since she felt anything like this. Not since her last chosen mate who'd gone sterile and was transferred to the nursery caste. Zeliari biology didn't do lingering attraction. Once the bond failed, so did the interest. That was how it worked. Efficient, predictable. Until now. Jack shifted beside her, elbows resting wide, his arm brushed hers. Accidentally she jolted. He didn't move. Rinna tried to ignore the warmth rising through her spine, but her glands betrayed her. A faint shimmer spread across her skin, visible only to those trained in Zeliari reading. She glanced down. His hand was resting casually on the table. So large, so capable. She imagined just for a moment what those hands might feel like, if they weren't trying to negotiate trade rights, if they were on her waist, her throat, her hips. She inhaled sharply and looked away. The meeting dragged on, protocol grinding like old gears. But when it finally ended, Jack leaned in close, again closer than necessary. You flinched, he said softly. You touched me. He didn't pull away. His voice was low now, almost teasing, almost testing. Rinna gritted her teeth. You're lucky you're the last of your kind, he smiled. So, I keep being told. She stood abruptly, the scent of ozone and heat clinging to her skin. He rose to towering beside her. His breath brushed her neck. I'll see you tomorrow, Ambassador. She turned, her voice tight. Don't be late. He stepped aside. But just before she walked past, he whispered near her ear. Wouldn't miss it. I want to see what color you smell like next. And with that, he walked away. Rinna stood frozen for several seconds. Then, slowly, deliberately, she smiled, just a little. Not because he was charming. Not because he was human, but because, deep in her chest, something ancient and half-forgotten had started to hum. She wasn't sure what it meant yet, but she wanted to find out. By the third day, she was dreaming about his hands, not in an innocent way, either. In her dreams they wrapped around her hips, her throat, her thighs, warm, rough human hands, doing things no Zeliari had ever done. Waking up wasn't much better. Her chamber still carried the scent of him ozone and cinnamon and that damn earth musk that clung to her clothes after every meeting. She told herself it was just hormones, just a rare biological curiosity, but she wasn't 20 anymore, and this wasn't curiosity, that it was need, and it scared her. The morning briefing was worse than usual. She'd scheduled it herself, insisted on a direct scientific breakdown of human reproductive biology. Strictly professional, of course. She said it was to prepare for any cultural overlap during alliance terms. She didn't admit it was, also to figure out what was wrong with her doctor self. The Zeliari gene scholar flicked through slides with academic detachment. Humans, she droned, are unique among known mammalian bipeds. Their males carry extraordinarily high levels of baseline testosterone, higher than Drethi predators, and nearly double that of Zeliari drones. Rinna shifted in her seat. And their mating process. The doctor paused. Primitive, unscheduled, voluntary. Rinna blinked. They choose. Often with preference, sometimes, based on emotion. Emotion, asterisk, that word was like a sharp stone under her tongue. Zeliari courtship didn't involve emotion. It involved timing, compatibility, scent, and genetic priority. But humans, especially human males, connected emotion to touch. To pleasure. And that made them dangerous. Self continued, tapping through charts. Male humans show peak arousal response during acts of prolonged intimacy. Touch, eye contact, verbal affirmations. Interestingly, size. Rinna interrupted. Is there confirmation of the myths? Self raised a brow but didn't blink. Confirmed. Substantial variation exists, but even the lowest percentile would exceed Zeliari average. In girth, length, and endurance. Rinna didn't respond. She couldn't. Her glands were already flaring, and if she spoke, the tremble in her throat would give her away. She dismissed the doctor with a nod and immediately activated the privacy seal on her chambers. Air filters kicked in. The scent of the room shifted, but not fast enough. She took slow, controlled breaths. This is not arousal. This is data. Then the chime rang. Of course it was him. Jack Arden stood outside her chamber in his usual casual and decently confident way. No weapons, no armor. Just pants that clung a little too well and a tunic that left just enough shoulder bare to be a war crime. Bad time, he asked. She didn't answer. She couldn't. She simply stepped aside. He entered slowly, eyes scanning the room, then her. You look flushed. I'm fine. You sure? I'm told Zeliari flush when they're angry or aroused. She stiffened. Who told you that? He grinned. The ship's AI has an interesting sense of humor. She wanted to snap at him. tell him to stop invading her space, her thoughts, her dreams. Instead, she said, "Do you ever stop?" His smile faded slightly. "Not when something matters." She swallowed hard. They were close now, not touching, not speaking, just breathing in the same thick, electric air. She could feel his body heat like a pulse in the walls. "I know what you're doing," she said. "Oh." Jack tilted his head. "You're playing with me, pushing, testing." He stepped in just a fraction closer. "Maybe, but maybe I'm just answering what you're already asking." Her skin glowed faintly now. Damn the glands. She should have shut them down with a suppressant. But she didn't want to. She wanted him to see her react, wanted him to know. Still, pride made her hold the line. "I'm not some experiment for you to seduce." "I know," he said softly. "You're the only one in this entire quadrant who still believes in rules. That's why I respect you." She blinked. "And that's why," he continued, "I won't touch you until you ask me to." Silence stretched between them like gravity. Then he turned just like the tan started toward the door. But before he reached it, she said his name. Soft, almost accidental. "Jack." He turned, waiting. "I've been having dreams," she said, about ... human contact. "Is that normal?" He walked back to her slowly, each step deliberate. "Depends," he said. "Are they the kind of dreams where you wake up warm and mad at yourself?" She didn't answer. That was answer enough. Jack leaned in, voice low. "That's normal." Rene's hands were shaking now, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was anticipation. She looked up at him and whispered, "What happens if I ask?" His smile was gentle now, honest. "Then I'll ruin you, in the best way possible." And this time, she didn't stop him when he touched her. She leaned into it, and everything she thought she knew about Zelyari biology began to burn. Rena, who had prepared for many things in her life, war, politics, power shifts, even betrayal, but she had not prepared for Jack Arden's mouth on her neck. It happened the way real things often do, not in a perfect moment, but in a messy, unplanned one. We had invited him back to her quarters officially, to review mutual customs for the next treaty session, unofficially. She was tired of pretending she didn't crave him. The lights were dim. The room still held the scent of cooling tea and something older hers. His, mixed now. Her skin still tingled from where his fingers had brushed her wrist earlier. That'd been accidental. This wasn't. He stood in front of her, watching her like she was a puzzle he didn't want to solve too quickly. Like he enjoyed the unknown. She hated that, and wanted more of it. "Last chance," he said, voice low. "You tell me to stop." I stopped. She stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to stop." And that was it. No ceremony, no ritual, no blood-drenched chanting like Zelyari, courtships of old dots, just beings choosing each other. His hand found her hip, strong, steady, real. Her breath hitched. He didn't rush. He just held her there, fingers resting against her side like he was checking to see if she was shaking. She was, but not from fear. His other hand brushed her face, thumb tracing the ridge of her cheek. "You're beautiful," he said. She frowned. "Don't lie, I'm not," Jack replied. "You just don't know how to believe it." Then his mouth touched hers and her knees almost gave out. It wasn't how Zelyari kissed. It wasn't a polite press or ceremonial gesture. This was claiming. His lips moved against hers like he meant to learn her, not just taste. His hands pressed firmer now, pulling her against his chest. She could feel his heart, rapid, alive. Humans weren't supposed to be this warm or this strong or this ... everywhere. She gasped when his tongue slipped past her lips, foreign wet. The man didn't, and then she made a sound she hadn't heard from her own throat since she was 17. A moan. Stars. What was happening to her? Jack pulled back just a bit, eyes dark with something deeper than lust. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded, dazed. "I didn't know kissing could do that." He smirked. "That's just a warm-up." Before she could answer, his hands were under her tunic. She should have stopped him. Zelyari didn't strip for pleasure, didn't crave exposure, but Jack touched her like every inch of her skin deserved attention. Worship. Even he found the gland line under her ribs where scent released during arousal pressed. A kiss to it, her whole body lit up. Bioluminescence flared beneath her skin in soft pulses, from violet to pink to gold. She trembled. "Oh no," she gasped. "I'm glowing." Jack pulled back just enough to grin. "Yeah, you are." She covered her face, mortified. "That's not supposed to happen unless I'm mating." "You think I didn't read the file?" he murmured. "I wanted to see you glow." And then gently, reverently, he undressed her. No fumbling, no rush, just patience. By the time she was bare, she didn't feel vulnerable. She felt ... "Seen, Jack," she whispered, reaching for him. "If you touch me again, I won't be able to stop." He leaned down, forehead touching hers. "I'm not asking you to stop." When he lifted his shirt over his head, she saw what the rumors hadn't prepared her for. He wasn't just large, he was impossibly built, and not just in the way of soldiers. His body was a sculpture of evolution. Broad chest, strong arms, a trail of hair leading downward, and she swallowed. Her eyes widened. "Oh," Jack just laughed softly. "That part of the file was accurate too, huh?" She nodded, speechless. And then he was kissing her again, and her body responded like it had always been waiting for this for him. Her glands released more pheromone, wrapping the room in heat and want. Her scent filled the air, thick and sweet, and his voice low, rough, full of reverence cut through it all. "You're not built for casual, are you?" She shook her head. "Zeliari biology." Jack's smile faded, replaced by something raw. "Then I won't be casual." And when their bodies finally met, when he entered her slowly, carefully, like a man afraid of breaking something sacred, Rina didn't think. She sang. It came from her chest, her throat, her core. An ancient melody, involuntary and primal, meeting him. One no Zeliari had sung in over a generation. Jack froze mid-thrust, eyes wide. "Did you just—" She clutched at him, overwhelmed. "I couldn't stop it." He pressed his forehead to hers, breath ragged. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." And when they moved together again, there was no awkwardness, no politics, no fear. Only heat, sound, connection. And light. Because when Rina reached her peak, her whole body ignited, skin glowing in 1,000 golden threads of pleasure and memory. Jack held her through it, whispering her name like a promise. After, wrapped in his arms, her body still trembling, she whispered, "You've ruined me." Jack kissed her shoulder and smiled. Good. And neither of them slept for a very, very long time. She woke up sore in muscles she didn't know she had. Her hips ached. Her throat was raw from singing, and her glands were completely drained, like she'd gone through a full cycle. Twice Rina lay still in the soft dim of her private chambers, wrapped in the heavy human blanket Jack had insisted on bringing. With him it smelled like himrith, warmth, something faintly metallic. Her skin still glowed faintly under it. Not enough to light her room anymore, but just enough to remind her of what had happened, of what they'd done. She turned her head. Jack Arden was still asleep beside her, one arm slung over his face, the other sprawled across the bed like he owned the territory even in sleep. He looked like a man who could break a door down or whisper your entire world into place. His chest rose and fell in slow, steady rhythm. And Rina watched him like she was observing some rare, endangered beast, which, technically he was. She'd taken a human male into her bed, into her body, and it had changed her, not just biologically though. Stars, her hormones were still buzzing from the sheer volume of what he'd given her. Human virility was no joke. Their bonding response was 10 times stronger than the average Zeliari drone. But this wasn't about science anymore. He hadn't just touched her. He'd learned her, every sigh, every twitch, every instinct she'd buried under years of duty and control. He'd found it, unlocked it, worshipped it, and somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, she had sung. That still shocked her. Zeliari mating hymns were ancient, ancestral, genetic memory encoded into sound, only triggered when the body felt truly bonded. She hadn't sung since before her first mate had failed his cycle. But last night, her voice had risen without warning, pure primal pleasure, and Jack had held her like it was the most natural thing in the universe. Now, as the light panels brightened for the station's artificial morning, he stirred a deep grunt. One eye opened. "Morning," he said, voice rough with sleep and victory. She scowled, playfully. "You're smug." He stretched, showing way too much chest and a hint of hip. "I'm satisfied." "That's not the same thing." She tossed a pillow at his head. He caught it icily, grinning. "Hey, if you're gonna weaponize cushions, at least admit it. You liked it." Rina sat up slowly, muscles groaning. "I more than liked it. I'm just trying to understand how you're still alive. I was told human males can't survive full Zeliari bonding." He propped himself up on one elbow. "I'm not most human males." She raised a brow. "That's the understatement of the cycle." He laughed, then leaned over, brushing her shoulder with his lips. "I told you I wouldn't touch unless you asked." She shivered. "And now," he whispered, voice teasing, asking again. She hesitated, then kissed him hard enough to knock him back into the pillows. Minutes later, after round 2, which she still wasn't ready to publicly admit had ended with another partial mating him, they lay tangled together in quiet. Jack stroked her bare back with slow, lazy fingers. "So what happens now?" She didn't answer at first, because she didn't know. Last night had broken rules, crossed lines, changed things. This wasn't a temporary indulgence anymore. She'd bonded. Her body knew it. Her scent glands knew it. Even her political instincts, sharp as razors, were starting to hope. Finally, she spoke. "I have to report to the High Council this evening." "Let me guess," he said. "You're not supposed to consort with a diplomatic exchange." She gave him a dry look. "Consort," Jack sang. He winced, then grinned, loudly. 3 decks down probably think we were performing an ancient fertility ritual. "Technically," she muttered. "We were." He chuckled and kissed her temple. "Do you regret it?" "No." The answer came faster than she expected. "I don't regret it," she repeated, softer. "But I don't know how to protect it. We're not built for public bonding. It's seen as weakness." Jack sat up, his voice quiet now. "Then let me be your weakness." She stared at him. He didn't flinch. "I don't care about titles or protocols or who salutes me in a hallway, but I care if you flinch every time we get close in public. I care if you think you have to hide." She swallowed. "And if I'm not ready, then I wait," he said simply. "No pressure, no timeline, just one promise." "What that?" I'm yours as long as you want me. Rinna reached for his hand, held it tightly. Then stay close, she said, because I think the galaxy is about to get very loud. He grinned. Louder than you last night. She slapped his arm, then kissed him again. Harder this time, and somewhere far away beneath the politics, beneath the fear, something warm and wild bloomed in her chest. It had a name, not love, not yet, but it was close. Asterisk, she didn't realize she was humming until she caught herself mid-melody. A soft, winding tune, one from her girlhood, before she joined the cast. Back when she still believed in stories about stars, about freedom, and about males who could love with hands as strong as ships and hearts too stupid to quit. She hummed because she felt safe. Rinna stopped short in the corridor, breath caught in her throat. Her palms were sweating. Safe, that word had no place in her vocabulary. Not as a diplomat, not as a Zelyari matron, not as someone who had survived for council hearings. 2 assassination attempts and the entire third Zorthic negotiation on half a meal and no sleep. But now, after Jack, she felt it in her chest, in her bones, that terrifying, unfamiliar lightness. He'd gone to retrieve supplies from the human vessel docked in the outer bay, insisting on bringing her real food, whatever that meant. Before he left, he kissed her forehead like it was the most natural thing in the world. Not possessive, not territorial, just ... There, he made her feel wanted, without demanding anything in return, and that was what scared her, because Zelyari drones didn't stay after bonding. They served, then they were reassigned. Emotion made things messy, but Jack was messy. He left his boots in the wrong place. He hummed human songs in the shower, loud and off-key. He kissed her when she was mid-sentence. He cooked using spice ratios that should have been criminal. He claimed her with nothing but steady hands and unspoken promises. And worst of all, he never asked her to give up her power. He just stood beside it. The High Council wasn't pleased. Of course they weren't. They called it reckless, a distraction, a genetic gamble. Her mother called it a delay in legacy. Rinna didn't answer any of them. She didn't have to, because Jack showed up at the formal banquet wearing traditional Zelyari robes with one sleeve removed to bear his mating mark, newly inked in human script and Zelyari braid-code. It said one thing: I stay. He didn't say a word during the whole ceremony, just stood behind her, calm and quiet, hands folded, but his presence, it echoed louder than any speech she'd ever made. By the end of the banquet, half the court was whispering, the other half was watching. 1 week later, Rinna stood in the medbay, heart thundering, staring at the holoscan that flickered with one undeniable truth. Inside her body, small, barely forming, but alive, was a flickering heartbeat, a hybrid. Part her, part him. The medic looked terrified to speak. Matron, no, Zelyari. Human embryo has survived past first fusion. This one will, she said. How can you be sure? She placed her hand gently over her abdomen, eyes wet but burning, because it wasn't made in a lab. It was made in love. She didn't tell Jack immediately. She didn't know how. Do you tell someone who's already given you everything that he's also given you the future? But he knew, of course he did. He came back that evening, arms full of something he called cinnamon bread. And before she could even speak, he dropped the bag, stepped forward, and placed both hands gently on her waist. You smell different, he said softly. Her lip trembled. Jack, you're pregnant. She nodded. Yes. He didn't smile right away. He just leaned in, resting his forehead against hers. Thank you, he whispered. For what? She breathed. For trusting me enough to carry tomorrow. Then he did smile. Big, stupid, honest human. And she started crying. I'm scared, she admitted, voice shaking. I'm not, he said, because I know exactly what to do. Oh, really? She sniffled. And what's that? Jack kissed her gently, slowly, deeply, then pulled back. Just enough to speak. I build, I fight, I protect. That's what humans do. And when the child asks who they are, he held her face in both hands. You tell them this, he said. You are half starlight, half storm. Your mother built empires. Your father burned every bridge to reach her, and you were born not from science, but from choice. That night, they lay in bed with her head on his chest, his hands splayed over her belly. Still scared? He asked quietly. Yes, she said. Me too. She laughed once, soft and broken. But we'll do it anyway, he said. We always do, she replied, and beneath her palm, a flicker pulsed. Not fear, not danger, but new life, their life. And for the first time in a long time, Rinna slept without armor. Asterisk. There was no sunrise on the station, no sky, no dawn, no birds. But that morning, as the habitat lights in the upper dome slowly warmed from soft blue to golden white, Ambassador Rinna stood barefoot in the kitchen of their shared quarters, humming the same lullaby her mother used to sing. Only, this time she wasn't alone. Jack sat on the floor, cross-legged, wearing a shirt 2 sizes too small that clung to his chest like it was afraid to leave him. He held their daughter in his arms, tiny, violet-skinned, bright-eyed, with a dusting of silver-white fuzz on her head and his smirk permanently stamped on her face. She was 6 weeks old and already bossier than either of them. She's got your temper, Jack muttered, gently bouncing her, and my lungs. She screams like a little thunder god. She's perfect, Rinna said, flipping the last of the flatcakes onto a plate. Even if she peed on 3 council robes last week. Jack grinned. Diplomatic dominance. I approve. Their quarters were quiet this morning, just the soft purr of the recycler, the hiss of heating plates, the low hum of their daughter's breathing, and peace, not the kind politicians talked about, not the kind you signed into treaties, the real kind, built over time, grown from late-night confessions, shared meals, tired hands holding each other in the dark, the kind that came after war, after fear, after doubt and stayed. I dreamed about Earth last night, Jack said suddenly. She glanced at him. Good dream or bad? He shrugged. Neither, just strange. I don't miss it like I thought I would. Maybe because this is home now. She walked over, sat beside him on the floor, pressed her shoulder against his. Their daughter reached for her with chubby fingers. Do you think they'll accept her? Rinna asked softly. The council. Jack snorted. They barely accept me. I meant the galaxy. Jack looked down at the baby now curled against his chest, yawning with tiny fangs just starting to bud along her lower jaw. Try to reject her, he said. We're humans, we don't give up, we conquer. Even if it's just with bedtime songs and spicy breakfast. Rinna laughed. Asterisk. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder, closing her eyes for a moment. She sings in her sleep, she murmured. I know. Do you think it's the hymn? The one yes, Jack said before she could finish. She remembers. They didn't speak for a while. Just sat there, the three of them in their small home, in a station orbiting a star neither of them could name. But it didn't matter. Because love, they'd learned, wasn't about the place. It was about the people. Later that day they walked through the central ring garden. Jack carried the baby on his back in a tiny harness she already hated. Rinna carried a datapad in one hand and a packet of formula in the other. They passed Drethi merchants, a pair of Thark engineers, Tazeliari elders who gave her a nod, not approval, not yet but recognition. That was enough. At the far end of the garden, someone had planted a tree, not native, just a stubborn, scraggly earth tree with thick leaves and a crooked trunk. Jack stopped. That wasn't here before. No, she said. I ordered it last week. Hybrid soil blend. It shouldn't have survived, but it did, he said. She smiled. They stood there a long time, watching something grow where nothing had been allowed to grow before. Jack, she said suddenly. Yeah, I'm not afraid anymore. He looked at her. You don't have to be, he said. Not with me. She took his hand. Their daughter gurgled in protest from the harness and kicked at Jack's side with surprising force. Winston laughed. She's gonna be trouble. She's ours, Rinna said proudly. Of course she is. Then she looked up at him, this impossible human, this myth Madriel, and said the one thing she hadn't said aloud until now. I love you. He didn't blink, didn't grin. He just stepped in, kissed her forehead, and whispered. No, they walked on, into a future they hadn't planned but had chosen, together. And behind them, under artificial sun, the little earth tree swayed in silence. It was crooked, stubborn, strange, but it was alive, just like them.